Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
Greetings, all you fellow surviving hominins. Specifically those of us from the genus Homo, species sapiens, and even the subspecies sapiens. So welcome to another episode of the podcast that'll drag you out of the dark ages. Welcome to Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Now in today's show, we're looking at how we can multiply ourselves at work to get twice as much work done. Now does anything about that sound enticing at all? I wonder. We're sending our love to the guy who broke the world record marathon running recently, and yet he still came second. But we also pay respects to the guy who came first. Enjoy the glory while you can, because humanoid robot runners, yes, you heard that right, humanoid robot runners are chasing you down and records are going to tumble in the marathon. And we'll look at some monkey business with the latest brain-computer interfacing. All that in its time, though. It's time to cut our resident techspert and let him loose on the microphone. Welcome, Matthew Dickerson.
So you make me laugh when you talk about Homo sapiens. When I was at school, and I can't remember how old we were, but we had to do a school project.
Well, it's Homo sapiens sapiens. Just
Thank you.
To clarify,
Correct.
My introduction was probably a little bit long-winded.
But the school project was to do the project on the reproductive system of an animal. So, of course, me, being possibly a smart aleck, chose Homo sapiens sapien. And the teacher was horrified. And I said, well, you only clarified that it needed to be the reproductive system of an animal, and we are animals.
Technicality.
Meanwhile, after going to the principal's office. So this week, I've actually laughed at myself in the way that I sometimes go about things in maybe way too much detail and involving computers way too much just because it's fun. Some people have hobbies where they might play a musical instrument or they might play a sport. I kind of think my hobby is just playing with computers. And so
anyone who wasn't guessing that Matt is a complete and utter nerd.
And I assume you mean that in the nicest possible way.
No. In a very affectionate way.
So I had a little project this week to do, which was just help someone out produce some images of some people, little cartoon images of people. They needed a few different variations, male, female, short, tall, skinny and not so skinny. I don't think we can say other words besides not so skinny. Now stocky might be better, a whole range, and dressed differently, casual, business wear, etc. They needed these various individual characters just for a project they were doing. So they said, can you help me work out some way to do this a bit quicker? And I was sure, let's use AI. We can use AI and put a prompt in to say, draw a character for me that looks like this. And that did it fantastically. And it took about 2 minutes to draw that character. And I went, oh, gee, that's a bit of a pain. They needed about 30 or 40 of these characters. Well, that's going to take a fair while just to put in something different, change it from male to female or change it from short to tall. So I came up with the concept of just using a spreadsheet, a simple spreadsheet, and then I defined a few attributes. So I had attribute 1 was a gender. That was easy. Attribute 2 was the height, tall, short, etc. So various attributes, facial hair, not facial hair, etc. And then used a randomizer, just a simple random number generator in Excel to randomize all those components so that I had somewhere in the order of about 1 million possibilities. So I was unlikely to get two the same. So that was fine. So that gave me the randomization, but then I had to get it from there into the AI tool, which I still had to copy and paste out of there and then wait 2 minutes. Oh, that's no good. So I found an auto hotkey tool that would allow me to take a series of actions on my computer and record those and then create a macro out of those that you could then run multiple times. So basically I then had to go into Excel, hit F9 to refresh, copy the correct cells, paste them into...
Anyone else who's ever hit F9 in their life, can you please contact us at some stage through the week?
Refresh the screen, is that better?
Okay.
And then paste that into the AI tool and then wait 2 minutes. And again, you just program the 2 minute wait into there. So I did all that, which probably took longer than if I had have actually just sat there and copied and pasted each time. But I was very happy with myself because I went for a bike ride for an hour. I came back and lo and behold,
they've all been done for you.
That's right, 30 or so images done.
That's wonderful. And listen, one day we're going to have to sit down and you can explain to me what all those function buttons do, the F1 to 12.
Well, I don't use them that often, but I had to use F9 in that
but
case.
The fact that you knew what F9 did.
Whoops.
That's enough for me. Well done. Thank you very much. I've learned something new too.
Well, and it's good. And the thing is, there are tools to do everything you want to do.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do question, and I did question myself.
Sometimes you've got to go for a deep dive into into the help menu.
Well, the next time I need to do that exact same thing for someone,
Yeah.
then I'm right. I'm covered now.
Yeah,
I've got it all
right.
done.
Now you're ready to go. That's a very special request too. All right, folks, we better dive into our first story for today. Now, with all the disruption from the current conflict around the Strait of Hormuz right now, it's interesting to follow the reactions of the consumers. Generally, people were pretty happy when the price dropped 20 or 30 cents per litre down from $3. More recently, prices have dropped to below $2 and people are relieved, well, at least for the time being. It's almost normal again. But one thing this drama has brought to light is the disparity between ICEs and EVs, in terms of running costs, that is, and it's making some people rethink their choices, Matt.
Yeah, there's some good data coming in now where we've talked before about total cost of ownership data, where EVs tend to be cheaper if you look at the 3, 4, 5 year ownership of a vehicle. But there's data coming in now that's saying that the purchase price is getting similar. So in terms of the outright purchase price, what's happening with the actual running costs? And so some data shows if you want to look at running costs, here's the difference. And this is using data that's about mid to late April data for petrol and diesel pricing and electricity pricing at the same sort of time frame.
Right.
And assuming you're not being really clever and charging with solar panels in the middle of the day, assuming you're still paying for
so
electricity.
using just mains, yeah.
Yeah, but probably using off-peak in terms of the cost of that
Yep.
versus using petrol that you buy from a Bowser. And so the running costs, breaking it down, and what this particular bit of data that came out showed was, let's just break it down to per kilometre. It gets a bit too complicated when people say how far they can get on a tank, which never made sense to me because tanks are different sizes. I can get 3,000 kilometres on a tank if I put enough tanks on my car. It doesn't make sense. Or the same with a battery. I can get 1,000 kilometres on a battery if you're happy to load up your boot full of batteries. So it makes no sense. Let's just look at the actual running costs. So the running costs for most EVs in the tests that they did were around 2 to 2.3 cents per kilometre. That's per kilometre,
Yeah,
2.3 cents. If you compare some popular vehicles, and they had various vehicles in this survey that were popular, Ford Ranger, Toyota Hilux, Isuzu D-Max, that type of thing, they were in the vicinity of 21 to 24 cents per kilometre.
Wow.
10 times the difference. Even when you go to some of the smaller cars, Hyundai Tucson, MG ZS, they were still around 15 cents per kilometre. Now, this isn't maintenance. This is just purely getting it fueled up enough to get from A to B. So you start to look at those costs, those breakdowns, and you start to say, wow, why am I driving a petrol or diesel car still? Yeah. So it's pretty interesting when you start to look at all of those. Now, of course, that 2 to 2.3 cents per kilometre could vary. If you're charging at superchargers all the time, you're paying a bit more than that, but again, not 20 cents per kilometre. And if you're charging with your solar panels at home, well, you're paying zero for the actual refueling costs of that. So that was giving normal real-world data. When you then start to think about what we've talked often about, range anxiety, people are now getting, and this is real, this isn't just me making up being a bit of an EV fan, people are getting pump anxiety. They are actually getting to the fuel bowser, and while they're putting petrol in, they're feeling anxious about the dollars ticking over on the Bowser. Oh my gosh, that's $100, $150.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to get up to a couple $100 in some of the modern vehicles we've got.
Exactly,
so people are getting quite anxious. They're now doing something that I used to do when I first had my first couple of cars. You'd put as much as you had in your pocket. You'd put $10 in, and that's all you could afford.
Yep. I remember that back in the day.
And it seemed like a waste of time to just put $10
put
in.
$5 in even, you know.
It was hardly worth pulling up at the Bowser to put $5 in. But that's what people are doing. They're now not filling up anymore. They're just going to what they think they can afford to actually use that. When you then start to add in the electric cars, the estimation is maintenance costs about 40% lower than normal. And I got a bit dudded in the very first EV that I bought. That actually wasn't the first EV, it was the second EV I bought, but the first Tesla I bought. I was trying to do a deal on Tesla, just say, this is our car, this is the price, everyone wants it, pay it or don't.
Yeah.
And so I bought cars for years where it was always the haggle. So I just assumed it was the haggle. So I tried to go back and forth, and finally I thought I had a win where the salesman said, we'll give you 3 years of free maintenance. I went, oh, fantastic. I know how much maintenance costs on a normal car. And I remember taking it back for the first maintenance, the first annual maintenance checkup, and I got the report back and it said, checked air pressure in the tyres, check windscreen wiper blades. And I'm going, but where's all the, I don't know, the grease nipples you had to fill up or something? And they said there's 43 moving parts in this vehicle. All the bearings are sealed bearings. There's nothing to maintain. So we did what we could for you. We checked the windscreen wipers on the tires. I think I got dudded by that salesperson. He relied on my ignorance. So maintenance costs are definitely lower. And so people are still looking at the whole concept about where can I charge up, but less and less so because people are now starting to buy these for their daily run around. They're charging it from home. Yeah. And I did actually start to think about the concept of, okay, you and I have talked about it. It doesn't matter if you got stuck somewhere with an EV. People say, oh no, I'll be stuck out in the middle of nowhere, because every business, every house, every building has got a power point on it.
Yeah.
Sure, it's going to charge slowly. It's going to charge 10, maybe 12 kilometres per hour, but it'd be enough to get you by rather than go, oh, I've got no petrol. Where's the nearest petrol station? So you can charge up. And I started thinking, well, wait up. Why don't they be a bit clever about this and actually have multiple charging ports on an EV so that if you had to, you could plug in 2 or 3 or whatever lead. So I did a bit more research on that, and it was a silly idea. So for a few reasons. One is that often, you pull up to someone's house and say, can I just use 2 or 3 power points? Well, often they're on the same circuit. Each power point might be limited to 10 amps, but the whole circuit might be limited to 20 amps. Yeah. So you plug a couple in and suddenly you trip the circuit breaker and you didn't achieve much. Yeah. Plus, there's a little minor thing.
Plug into your own house and your neighbour's house.
Well, that's a better idea. There's a little thing called the International Electrotechnical Commission, and they don't like the idea of multiple ports because that could mean you could be plugged into one and someone could come along and open up the other, and that might be live while you're plugging the other one. I think you could engineer around that, but they really don't like to have multiple ports there. Yeah. I think more importantly, we might see more and more houses. We've seen lots of houses already with a random 15 amp power point somewhere. Maybe you'll see more of that, so you can just plug in anywhere if need be. But I suppose there'll be that many chargers at some point in time, or that many houses with chargers, you won't need to worry about it too much. So it's changing. The times are here. The great thing about all of this, with all of these scares with petrol, with all of these tensions across the world, and I'm sure this isn't going to be the last time we see some tensions with oil-filled countries, then if you want to have some protection from all of that, if everyone in your country can just plug into a power point and keep their vehicles running, suddenly you're not as dependent upon those oil-producing nations, and that puts you in a very powerful position as a nation, I think,
Doesn't
anyway.
it? Yeah. Now, look, I still maintain that I reckon that we will see the end of the petrol days in the next 15 to 20 years. Yeah.
Well, we talked about it before. More and more manufacturers are saying, we're not producing any more new petrol vehicles. Sure, we'll keep selling the existing ones for a while yet. Yep. We're not producing any more, and it will get to the point.
It's going to get harder and harder to get resale on your petrol.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yep, exactly right. So, look, I think urban commuting, fleet use, EVs will definitely be there. Maybe heavy haulage still, but again, if we took all our light vehicles off the road from ICE and move them across to petrol, then the limited amount of oil and petrol that we're able to get at the moment would more than cover our heavy-duty fleet. So it makes a very strong argument there in a whole range of ways. So it's interesting. Go and do some of those or crunch some of those numbers yourself and have a look. But, of course, then if you've got an ICE, you've got to try and get rid of it to some other sucker that hasn't heard the good news.
Someone who hasn't heard yet, yeah. And so if you're considering an EV purchase, it's worth knowing that there's been a lot of attention turned towards the Hyundai showrooms of late. The Ioniq 3 is turning heads in the hatchback market space, and as an affordable EV option, this one is going to give BYD a run for its money. Matt, EV tech is getting better, and competition is hotting up indeed.
Oh, I do like the idea of competition. That's good. And Hyundai makes some good vehicles. I've owned an Ioniq 5. I currently own an Ioniq 6. This is no case for comment here, but I actually had a message from a friend this morning who said, can I take your Ioniq 6 for a test drive? Because they're looking at one as well, and it's hard to just go and get a test drive when you haven't got a local dealer there. So the Ioniq 3, and I think this is a bit of a marker to where some of the manufacturers are moving. So the Ioniq 3 has just been announced and is not in Australia yet, but will be, I suggest, before too much longer. And what they're doing, some manufacturers are saying, is the compact hatchback, the compact SUV. Yeah. The first cars that came out, the Tesla Model S, for example, it was a large car, and they did that deliberately because the batteries and the development costs were high. And so if you put all that into a small car, it made it very expensive. But if you put that into something that was like a big luxury car that competed against Mercedes-Benz or BMW in their luxury segment, then it didn't seem quite as expensive. But now we're getting to the point where the small runaround is a valid option. So in the BYD range, for example, the Atto 3 is a good little runaround, a little SUV runaround. But the Ioniq 3, trading on that Ioniq name, which has already built a bit of a reputation, trading on that, then they're getting to the point where they're saying most people might want to be able to jump in that car and drive 1,000 kilometres, but they certainly want to drive 30 kilometres, 50 kilometres, drop the kids off to school, go into work, do the shopping, whatever it might be. And they're more targeting around a metropolitan area, a Sydney or a Melbourne, because obviously that's where more people live. So the Ioniq 3 is exactly in that spot. And I think we'll see more and more of these vehicles as opposed to the larger vehicles in the past. So it's still got decent range. 344 kilometres on the WLTP. And just for a small side note here, I don't think WLTP will be the standard forever because WLTP comes from the Worldwide Harmonised Light Vehicles Test Procedure. Now, that's WHLVTP, and they've shortened that to WLTP. And I just think someone's going to come up with a better acronym, and that'll be the test that we'll use in the future.
That's right, yeah.
Because if you're just going to go,
happy with that one.
That's right. It's a few initials that don't roll off the tongue,
Yeah.
and initialism I don't like as much. So someone will come up with something much better. But on the WLTP, which is a standard at the moment, 344 kilometres or 495 kilometres, depending which model you buy. For most people, 344 kilometres, they're not doing that in a day mostly. They mightn't even do that in a week. But if they are doing it every couple of days, then you just plug in and charge up, or if you've got some solar panels, plug in over the weekend after your week of driving around. So I think that's where there'll be more movement than we think. Everyone's been focused on these, I want 1,000 kilometres, but the reality is most people don't need that. And when some people see how much cheaper it is, they'll start to go that way. Now,
well, that's the thing. And so it becomes more feasible to just jump on a plane if you can and fly to wherever you're going to go.
Yeah, exactly.
And hire a car at the other end.
And you spend all the money you've saved on fuel on the plane ticket to get to where you want to go. So this isn't particularly fast charging. Often we talk on this podcast about the latest development in fast charging. This one only does 10 to 80% in 29 minutes. It's only a 400 volt infrastructure, whereas a lot of the cars are 800 volt. But again, Hyundai have said very deliberately, we're trying to build to a price here. Yeah. We don't need to give you those features because really it sounds attractive in the marketing brochures, but when people look at it, they go, oh, it's 10 grand cheaper for that model. I might just go that model, thanks very much. So that's interesting. See, BYD have got the new Blade 2 battery that says it can do the same 10 to 80 in 9 minutes. And that's great, but if I'm just plugged in at home, charging up on a weekend or overnight, do I care if it's 29 minutes or 9 minutes? And my home infrastructure is not going to have the power to do it in 9 minutes anyway, so I'm not that concerned.
So for a lot of people, I can see this being their second car.
Correct. Yeah. Yes, that's exactly, you hit the nail on the head. I think so. For a second car, I've got the big car to tow the boat or go on that big long holiday, but run around town, do I need that big SUV four-wheel drive to drop the kids off to school? Not really. No. The other thing that's always interesting, and I had this interesting chat with someone at one of the radio programs that I do, and this person was completely confused about the idea of torque and how much torque an electric vehicle has. And this person said to me on air, well, that'll be fine, but for trucks that need that grunt to pull that big load, well, you'll still need diesel engines for a while to come. I went, no, that's completely backward. It's completely wrong. Yeah. Diesel electric trains, which I went through and explained to him about the fact that they've been running on diesel to produce power to power the electric motors that are on the actual wheels. Do you call them wheels on a train? Are they still called wheels?
Yeah, no, I'd call them wheels.
Yeah, why not? I thought they might have a fancier name. So to basically drive those because they've got all that torque. And to give you an idea of this little car, 107 kilowatts, so that's fine for a small car, 250 newton metres of torque. Now, an equivalent petrol car, same size, might have 150 newton metres of torque, but it's going to get that after it gets to 3,000, 4,000 revs per minute. So this little car, even though it's not designed to be a performance vehicle, it'll still have a really good pickup because 250 newton metres of torque from zero, from the start, is going to be much more impressive than 150 or 180 maybe at 3,000 revs once you start to get going there. So all these things to me are quite nice. You've got lots of room in the boot because you haven't got a big petrol tank underneath. You've got enough options in there, screen options. I mean, Hyundai, one thing they do is they try and lay out the car a bit more like a normal car. Sometimes people jump in my car and they go, oh, good, it feels like a normal car with a bigger screen in it. Whereas you jump in a Tesla and you go, this is different. Yeah. I can't mistake it. Yeah. This is different. But they do give you a couple of options. You've got a 12.9-inch display or a 14.6-inch display. And I thought, isn't it fascinating that now one of the options in a vehicle...
size of your screen.
Yeah. Haven't we changed? Like, you go back a few years, imagine if someone said you can have different size screens and what? It's just, that's the screen, isn't it? So it's fascinating. The whole European EV market is getting competitive, and I love that. Volkswagen ID3, Volvo EX30, BYD Dolphin, and then so the BYD Atto that I mentioned, and now the Ioniq 3. So it's heating up there without a doubt.
Yeah, I just for ICE drivers out there who aren't even considering or are not even going to contemplate getting an electric car, good luck.
Good luck in the future.
Now, it feels like it was only very recently that we posted a story about a robot running race and the comical nature of these bipedal humanoids plodding around a marathon track. It was a pretty clumsy sort of thing to watch there. Robotic engineers sized each other's handiwork up, and as these things stumbled and staggered around a half marathon track in China, they came up with some repairs, some new ideas. Well, in the few short months between now and then, if you haven't heard already, the world has changed and our glorious days of human supremacy on the track are now officially over. Matt, you have rather ominous results out of a Beijing marathon in April.
Can we go back to last year for a start? We did talk about the race, the same race last year.
I thought it was this year even. I thought it was that recent, but it was last year.
It was last year, yeah. They did, and this is where China is really focused on their robotics. In fact, China's government has prioritised robotics as a national technology strategy to the year 2030. So expect to see a lot of movement. And this race is one of those ways to do it. I was pretty happy with the results from last year because it was a bit comical. Robots fell over. The winner of the half marathon last year did it in 2 hours, 40 minutes and 42 seconds. And I'm pretty happy with that because my best half marathon time's under an hour 40, so I could beat this robot by more than an hour. So take that.
That was kind of well off full marathon pace even. So,
yeah, that's right. So that's what stood last year, and they were falling over, they were crashing, they were fizzing with little sparks coming out of it, all sorts of comical things. Move forward only a year, the current world record for a human, and this was only broken in March this year, is 57 minutes and 20 seconds for a half marathon.
Wow.
It's owned by Jacob Kiplimo, I think his name's pronounced Kiplimo. He broke his own world record.
Fast.
That's fast. This is the scary part. That's doing about 22.1 kilometres an hour for almost an hour. Or for runners like you and I, James, 2 minutes 43 per minute. Per kilometre, sorry, 2 minutes 43 per kilometre. So that's not too bad, is it?
Yeah, okay.
So this year, the same race had a humanoid robot do the half marathon, the 21.0975 kilometres of a half marathon in 50 minutes and 26 seconds. So that's doing about 25.1 kilometres an hour.
Wow.
Now, there was a robot that did it faster than that, but it didn't win the race because the rules of the race said they had to be fully autonomous. And there was one that was remote controlled that did it in 48 minutes and 19 seconds, but it was remote controlled. So that excluded it from the race. They were just showing off what they could do with a robot. But this robot in 50 minutes was fully autonomous. And that was the rules for the race to be able to compete in the race. They had to start on the same line. The humans could set them up. They could do 3 battery swaps during the race, up to 3 battery swaps. And even last year, they could do up to 6 battery swaps last year. And the battery swaps last year took them up to about 4 minutes. This year, battery swaps were about 10 seconds.
It's become a Formula One pit stop.
I thought of exactly that.
But that's phenomenal that even with the battery stops, they're still at 50 minutes.
Correct. And the only thing I thought was a bit dodgy was they had to have humans help them with the battery swap. I wanted the robot to have to do the battery swap themselves, take the battery out and then, what up? What do I do now? I've got no power to run. So that was one thing. And I suppose it's a bit like a Formula One team. You've got the teams in there, you've got the humans there, and they pull out the battery, put the other one in and pat him on the back and say, off you go, buddy.
Do you know what's going to happen next year? Is they're going to have the robots replacing their own batteries.
Well,
There'll be a spare little battery just to give them enough charge just to do that battery swap.
An auxiliary battery to keep them going for 20 seconds while they swap their battery over. So fascinating. And this is all
So
good.
now, in my nightmares, when I'm running away from those robots, I'm not getting away from them at all.
You're not.
I've got no hope. Surrender.
No, that's right now. Not unless you go against the ones from last year.
See, running away from Daleks was pretty easy. But
you just go up a step, don't you?
Yeah.
That's easy.
But now we're in trouble, folks.
Yeah. Now, the engineers cheated, of course, because they did model the robots, humanoid robots, on, guess what? The best human runners. So they gave them legs the same proportions as very good human athletes. They look pretty much like a finely tuned athlete. All this is good, James, because, my objective to have the robot around the home. And imagine how fast they'll be able to get from the bedroom to the laundry to take my washing down to there and get it done. There'll be no excuse.
You can send them on errands down to the shops and stuff.
That's right.
Yeah?
I was just thinking around my house, actually, to start with. There's no excuse for being a bit slow and getting the washing done.
Will they spill a takeaway coffee if it's got to run 3 or 4 blocks?
At 22 kilometres an hour. Well, if the lid's sealed tight and you don't pop the little button there, it should be okay.
They run smoothly.
Yeah, I don't know they were that smooth, but they were certainly fast.
Oh, wow.
And
we are there.
We are
it's
there.
The future.
The winner was appropriately called Lightning. His name was Lightning. So they've been watching too many cartoons maybe. Anyway, it's certainly some breakthroughs, and competition does actually drive technology,
Certainly
innovation.
Does, doesn't it?
So you want to win the race.
And as I say, those engineers would have been watching each other and watching what each other was doing.
Last year.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very exciting.
Now, Matt, I'm not sure what to make of this next story. Folks, we've now entered the realm of the digital twin, an AI-powered replica of yourself on a professional level. Now, it stems from the idea that I need 2 of me to do my own job. We've all felt that at one stage or another. And now one AI boffin has done just that, has all his employees doubled up. And a number of companies are taking up the tech as well. Matt, these AI doppelgangers, they're making decisions, they're organising and carrying out meetings, and they're solving problems, all on someone's behalf. It's both miraculous and terrifying all at once.
It is both indeed. So there's the old joke that says if you want people to think you're clever, agree with everything they say. If you want people to think you're stupid, you say, no, that's wrong, James. Oh, what? What would you know? That's just stupid. And it's a cheeky little saying, but it is true. How often do you hear people say that person is an idiot and you go, why? Because they didn't agree with me. So in a workplace environment, normally what you want is some people that disagree with you. Oh, I'm thinking about doing this. Well, why would you do that? That's a silly idea. Why is that a silly idea? You want some disagreement. You want different ideas coming forward. You don't want everyone to sit there and nod and say, yes, that's right.
Conflict makes you think.
It does. That's right. You want a harmonious workplace, but you want a workplace where your thoughts and ideas are challenged.
Sorry, conflict. Not aggressive conflict, but some disagreement.
That's right. You want someone to challenge your thoughts. And you want someone to say, tell me why that's a good idea, James. Is that really a good idea? And you've got to explain it. When you've got to explain it, sometimes you go, actually, well, I'm trying to explain it. It's not that good an idea after all. But
we've all been there.
In this case, doing the digital twin is so that you're creating someone that is totally in sync with you. And why would you want that? Because you can send them to the boring meetings that you don't want to go to. And what they will say and the decisions they will make if they're asked to make decisions will be the same as you. And how have they done that?
I just can't trust that.
Well, here's the thing. They train you, or they train the digital twin on you. They give this digital twin all your emails, all the documents you've written, listening on conversations, listening on meetings, on all the things you say and do. And then they go, you know what? I've got this now. I've got James under control. So in a meeting, they would sit there and they would
say... What about those things you want to pull back on and say... Yeah, I did type out that email before, but I want to backtrack on that. I want to. It's going to use that as prime material.
Well, what you could do then is say, digital twin. I'm not sure about that one.
And then when things start to really fall apart, you can just blame your.
That's right.
Twin.
And of course, then if it's a great idea, you go, see, that was really my idea.
So what happens when everyone's got a digital twin and everyone sends their digital twin off to these meetings? It's just a meeting between AI, just arguing with itself.
That's right. But arguing with each other based on the thoughts of its owner. Now, there are so many minefields that I can just see us walking across with this one.
I just want, if it dobs me in for a job, I want it to do that job.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
that seems reasonable.
Good.
So when you become secretary of the PNF, then that's your job to record the minutes, send out the notes, get the job done, and also stand there on the sausage stand.
Yeah, that's right. When
at the hardware store on Saturday morning
to do stuff,
that's right.
It's got to go.
And that's a good point because it remembers that a meeting previously you volunteered to do the sausage sizzle. Yep, James will do that. So there's some really interesting issues around this. So what happens if you do make a decision that's the wrong decision? Is it your digital twin that's in trouble, or are you in trouble because it's your thoughts? What about if it's a great idea and you make lots of money out of that idea? Do you get to keep that money, or does your digital twin say, I'll take that, thanks very much, I'll open my own bank account, I know your details, thanks James, I'm right here. But who owns the digital twin? Does your workplace, where all the data's been trained, own your digital twin?
An age of accountability.
Oh.
Yeah? So this is a hornet's nest.
It is. And of course, as we talk about so often on this show, there's no clear legal framework, because what legislator needs to create a framework for something that doesn't exist yet? So things happen organically, and then suddenly someone will challenge this. There'll be a court case where there'll have to be a precedent set, and then that'll set it for a whole range of situations. The theory is it's quite clever in that I go to meetings sometimes and I go, I don't need to be here. I know the meeting's about to start, and I go, I know what I'm going to say because I know what these people are going to say, and there's the answer, and let's do that, end of story. Maybe that's a little bit arrogant, but at the same time, half an hour later it plays out. You go, yep, let's just do that. And why do we waste half an hour of 10 people sitting around the room? Having all your digital twins go to a meeting, maybe you need one human at each meeting, maybe just to make sure the digital twins don't start fighting amongst themselves.
What if you need more than one digital twin, a digital triplet?
Yes. Well,
we've all seen that movie Multiplicity with Michael Keating. Keaton.
Presumably.
The more copies you make of yourself, the dumber they get. I'm so worried about this. This is
presumably you create one to create another would be instant, surely.
Yes, surely it would be instantaneous. It'd just be hitting that enter button.
One of my big issues is that each thing that I do, each meeting that I go to, each thing that happens with my life, you're learning from that. You've got experience. They often give jobs to people with a few grey hairs because they want the experience of that person. So if you're not participating in any of these,
you're not getting that experience.
You can download in one direction to the digital twin, but how do you download back to you to go, now all those meetings you've been to, give me back all that information? So when someone says, remember that thing we did at the meeting? No, I don't remember that. My digital twin was there.
So I'm picturing one of those meetings where you can, like a Teams meeting, and you can have a screen blank. It's just got your name written across the front. Now with AI, we know that AI can copy your voice as well.
Yep.
So is it protocol to declare that it's the digital twin, or can you just?
Well, even now, the digital technology, the video technology is so good, you could even have an image there.
Yes, you could have.
So I want to now make people bleed. Just cut your finger and show me some blood to make sure I know you're real.
We're there. Look, when we got emails, this is 30 years ago, when email became a thing, we all thought, it's going to be so much easier now to send messages to people and stuff like that. It's going to make my life so much easier. What it did was make more work for us all.
Exactly.
So we keep finding ways to make things easier. What it does is just make things more.
That's right. There's so much more is expected now because everything's easier.
Yes.
So you can do more.
You can do more because it's easier.
So what about this problem? So, James, you've been doing wonderful work lately, and that's now been transferred to your digital twin. So we don't need you anymore because we've got your digital twin, and it's every bit as good as you, James.
Cheaper, much cheaper.
And it remembers that meeting from 4 years ago where we had that discussion about that thing that you can't remember about now because it was so irrelevant.
In fact, James, we kind of like your digital twin better.
Yeah, that's right.
They're funnier.
So I don't know what happens then if you leave that job and you go to another job and next thing you know there's 10 James Eddies out there, or maybe if you get old and die.
hate this idea. Can we not go down this road? Yeah. No digital twins.
Right, that's it. It's
Nobody's allowed to have any digital twins.
That's right.
So we're diving back into brain-computer interfacing again today. Strap yourselves in, folks. Scientists have been implanting chips into the brains of a small group of monkeys now to see how they're able to negotiate the virtual world. Now, I can hear you are all rolling your eyes across the line there. And before you start playing out a series of Planet 8 movies in your head, there's some method to the madness here. This is about exploring intuitive control rather than just mimicking specific movements. Matt, you've got the details of this intriguing investigation.
It's intriguing. So we know we've had some BCIs. There's been people that have had a BCI brain-computer interface installed, and they've been able to do things. For example, someone that might have lost the use of their legs can actually control their wheelchair via thinking about their wheelchair. There was
And
one
they've even like robotic legs and like
all
suits
sorts
that
of
they can-
all sorts of fun, wonderful things. There was one there where I watched a paralysed man flying a virtual drone, but could have easily been a real drone, using his mind, which I thought that's fantastic. Now, at the moment, when you've got the BCIs being inserted into humans,
No, we call it installed. We're going down that path. Oh, I went down the shop today, got a BCI installed.
that's what it feels like. So when we're talking about that, we've typically been working on one part of the brain, the primary motor cortex for BCIs into humans. These ones that were installed in robots, I'm going to keep using installed, were installed in the primary motor cortex, the dorsal and the ventral premotor cortex. What that all means is that it was more than just physical action. It was actually thinking about the processes, the thought processes to get them somewhere. So then what they did was they showed these monkeys a video game. And they didn't really know it was a video game, but they basically had a path to get to from A to B. They started off with something very simple. They had a sphere on the screen on the game, and they just said, push that sphere along. And they thought about it, the monkeys, and they pushed that sphere along. Then they gave them something that was attractive at the other end of a maze, and they managed to get their virtual avatar, their virtual monkey avatar, through the maze to the other end with just their thoughts. They thought, I need to go left there, I need to go forward there, just the same as they would have if they were actually out in the real world. So it's quite fascinating how far we've come already with BCIs. And I actually started thinking about it more and more. I thought, if I think of a Ethernet cable, I've got data going down an Ethernet cable, and it produces a microscopic electromagnetic field around that data cable. But if I'm really wanting to look at the data in there, I need to be looking at the data. Looking at the electromagnetic field around there, I'm probably not going to get all the detail of that data. And that's kind of what I feel like with BCIs. I'm not actually on the immediate pathway of that data. I'm picking up the signal that's actually leaking out from that data from my brain signal.
Wow.
So how accurate can we get it? I don't know. We're already getting it way more accurate than many people thought was possible.
Goodness me.
So there'll be a lot more work done on monkeys for anyone that's a bit concerned about animals being used for experiments. Then, sorry, it's happening. It's happening now as we speak. But this will make it to the point where it might well be, James, go forward a generation. You're born, you've got your tax file number from birth maybe, and you get your BCI installed so you can download all human knowledge to your brain so you can start to make the world a better place from birth.
Smokes.
Maybe that's going too far. But it's interesting.
Folks, just remember you heard about the end of the world first here on Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Here's a heads up for the travellers out there. We've got great news for you. Never again will you need to have another Barney with a Romanian cab driver or suffer embarrassment in front of a Bangladeshi street vendor. There'll be no more clumsy communication when travelling overseas, provided your iPhone is carrying a responsible level of charge. Real-time language translation in your iPhone message app is a thing from now on. So, Matt, we can all get ourselves from Okayama Central Station to the fish markets in Asakuchi and back in time for a tea ceremony without any unnecessary detours and getting lost. Am I right?
Well, it's even better than that because I can be messaging someone in Japan and I'm just typing my normal messages in English and it's translating them to Japanese, and the person at the other end reads it in Japanese and types in Japanese and comes back to me in English. So we've had various apps that we've used over the years. In fact, my favourite app was one called Say Hi, but you can't get that app anymore. I'm not sure why because I love that one. But we've seen Google Translate.
But both parties really needed to have it, or you had to show someone your phone.
Correct. You had to show someone your phone, or you could talk and they could talk, and it was all a bit clumsy, but yes, you could do it that way. And then Google had their Translate, and then various apps came along. So that kind of has been around for a little while. Apple's joined in as well. Sometimes Apple look at what Google's doing and go, damn, they got there first. We better just wait a little while and then come up with something better. And so they've got the standard translation apps that we've seen for a while, but they've gone two steps better. When the AirPods Pro, the latest version, came out of those, we joked about it at the time. I think there's an episode of Seinfeld where Elaine brings in George's dad to listen to them speaking in Korean in the Nail studio to see if they're talking about her. And now you can do the same thing with your AirPods, and that's been around for a little while now, a few months, where you just walk in with your AirPod, listening to music supposedly, but it's translating everything that's being said in that Nail studio. That's exactly it. The Babelfish from Douglas Adams, exactly right.
Yeah.
But then this has gone a step further, where now I can be just sending messages back and forth with someone else next to me, over the other side of the world, wherever, in 2 different languages, and it will just keep going back and forth in those languages. So we keep wanting a universal language, and maybe English is becoming a bit of that, but that might be a bit of arrogance from an English-speaking country as well. But why bother? Let everyone speak their own language and just have the Babelfish, just have something that automatically translates as we go. And sometimes we'll even get it right. Sometimes it won't put you into an ugly situation where you've just said something incredibly offensive to someone. No, they're pretty good. When I've used them in the past, they're pretty good, and usually you can get the meaning across, and there'll be some words that don't quite work properly. There'll be some words that maybe don't translate the same, but usually you can work it out from the context and the person can read it. Same as when we read a translated sign. We go, well, that English is wrong, but we know what they're trying to say. Yeah. So same sort of thing. But isn't that cool? You type it in your language and automatically behind the scenes it just goes and gets translated and off it goes.
It's just amazing that, it's breaking down barriers is what it's doing.
Yeah,
it's just, and communication can be a real barrier if you can't get that message across.
And it's right. And I'm in a Rotary Club where we have exchange students come in each year, and typically we send someone overseas.
Yeah.
And over that time frame that they're here, they'll speak to the Rotary Club each few weeks, maybe each month. And their English, you can hear, getting a lot better if they come from a non-English speaking nation. In particular, the American sometimes gets a bit better Australian English. But why bother? Why bother anymore? Why bother going through all that process of learning a language when I just use my phone? That'll be all problem solved, won't it?
So we've already established today that AI is at least as good as you at work, and that robots are clearly better than you'll ever be in a half marathon. Well, there is at least one frontier that robotics are yet to conquer. And Matt, apparently it's still a little early to put all your trust into a robotic guide dog these days. Now, there's some handy advice.
Yeah, that's right. There's been a fair bit of testing done because it's about $50,000 to train a guide dog to the point where it's comfortable, it's safe to leave it with a vision impaired person and say, there you go, on you go about your day, and you've got your dog who's got your back and got your front as well, got you covered with everything. And so there's been some work done with some robotic dogs, and we've seen stories before about Spot the Robot.
Well, there was a very hopeful story we did a while back there. Yeah.
And Spot the Robot dog is a universal dog that's been adapted to do a whole range of things, law enforcement, going to nuclear reactors, big guide dogs. But the data that's come out so far is that at the moment, dogs are still superior to a guide dog, a robot guide dog, simply because they've got this ability to sense what's going on, this little nuanced sensing that a dog can pick up on different emotions that the human might have. And so there's been a lot of testing, a lot of work done, and that's the thing that's been the difference, if you like, is that a robot guide dog just can't pick up that you're not sure if you want to go forward yet because you're feeling a bit anxious, or you're not quite comfortable with something that's happening, and the guide dog picks up on that. Robots, they're just programmed. They're ones and zeros. Yes, no, I'll just go and do that. They don't understand nuance. They don't understand empathy. They don't understand that you're not comfortable with something. So that'll get better over time. The big difference, I think, where the guide dog will get better is that the vocabulary of a guide dog, a real guide dog, is about 30 words. I think a guide dog can understand an advanced years of training, $50,000 guide dog can understand about 30 words. Yeah. One thing that a robot guide dog can understand is, well, everything, because it's got access.
Lord of the Rings.
That's right. Someone, please understand Lord of the Rings.
Or the Silmarillion. Have you ever tried to read that book? Now, but yeah, so this is the thing that gets me though. I mean, so a robot dog, it can go on and on and on and on. And unfortunately, the really sad news is that guide dogs have got a lifespan. Yeah. And so that $50,000 is only good for a certain amount of time.
Correct.
Which might not be as long as the owner. There's a lot in favour of robot guide dogs. Yeah. But
there's some work to be done there yet.
But there's still, it's still lovely to know. It warms the heart to know that the real thing, the animal, is still, there's something that it can bring to the table.
So that's one victory for organic products at this stage.
At this stage, yeah. And then we'll get robot guide dogs recognising emotion and
it'll be able to smell.
The smells and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Now, here's another one from the files of, I'm not sure if this is a good thing or bad thing. It's a voice recorder designed to sit unobtrusively on the family table and record the to and froing at dinner time. Now, I can see how this could be an awesome toy for nostalgia buffs like myself. Perhaps as chapters change in a family and significant family events occur, but then I just don't want any of my family members to hold me to account for things that I've said over mealtimes in days of yore. Matt, could this have potentially lethal consequences? I think, the family conversations are, a nuanced thing.
They are a nuanced thing. And so I can see some benefits in this. If you've got, for example, multiple generations together for a rare dinner.
Yes.
You might say, let's get everyone around and, hey, we'll drop this little thing. It looks like a hockey puck, sits in the middle of the table, and it just records. It's got multiple microphones, just records everything locally, not in the cloud at this stage, just locally. So you can get all that. And when grandpa or grandma
and it's super subtle. I mean, people aren't really aware of it.
I think they'd be very aware of it in the beginning.
Yeah, you might tell people it exists there, but once the conversation gets rolling, it's different to having a video camera there. And we've got lots of footage of elderly relatives. Made sure we had a video camera when my sons were very young, so we could catch them as they grew up. And it would have been lovely to catch some of their conversations at the dinner table as well. But we also got the elderly relatives as well. But the conversation that they were making while the camera was there, it wasn't as natural.
No. And it's funny, isn't it? I look at cameras or videos, of the kids when they're younger and even when their grandparents were alive, and they'll go, "G'day, camera." And it's like, it's a funny thing. You're talking to a camera and you call it camera. Can you come up with a better name? "G'day, Cindy," kind of thing. But it is a bit stilted, I think. Whereas if you've just got something, you sit there, "Hey, everyone, we're just recording, but don't worry about it." Everyone will be a bit self-conscious to begin with, but then you start chatting away and you forget about it. But then hearing grandma or grandpa talk about when they were at school or before electricity was around or just some of the things they had to do when they were growing up, that'd be great for kids in many generations to come. And now here's your great-great-great-grandfather talking about things that happened to their particular
you can also
lifetime.
Catch those really awkward boomer conversations. I can't believe Grandpa said that.
Exactly right. And just some of the language they would use, which may not be appropriate anymore. So they might use words that we don't use anymore. But the interesting thing is that, and I've got this hypothesis, and I don't have a lot of data to back this one up, is that, and I've talked about it before, I don't think we can remember something when we're 5 years old. I think when we sit around the dinner table and talk about things, family stories, someone that broke their arm back when they were 7 years of age, we remember the remembering.
Yes.
And it's like a photocopy that each time it's photocopied, the quality degrades a little bit. The stories get better. The stories get better each Christmas time, without a doubt, because you just lose some of the real details and they get replaced by more impressive details.
By an elaboration that wasn't there previously.
That's right. So imagine having this recording. Let's go back 10 years ago and hear how you told that story 10 years ago. Yeah. And I've got one where my brother, all of us grew up riding motorbikes, and my eldest brother broke his arm one time in a motorbike accident. So terrible, fell off and obviously broke his arm. And as far as I can remember, as a kid, when I was learning to ride on the road and drive cars, etc., I vividly remember my parents saying, now make sure you don't do what your brother Phil did. When you're out on the highway, don't follow a car out that's overtaking, because that's what he did when he broke his arm. So apparently Phil's on his motorbike behind a car. The car overtook someone in front of them, so he followed them around. They pulled back in only to be confronted by a vehicle on the other side of the road. Not a good thought. He fell off, broke his arm. And it was only a couple of years ago. He lives in America now, and he was visiting Australia. And I said, we're sitting around the dinner table, and I had this conversation with him. He said, no. I said, I fell off. No other cars involved. Going down to work early in the morning, and it was really slippery. But it was early morning in winter, really slippery, and just slid off. And
what's this about overtaking?
That's right. No recollection of that. I'm going, I'm sure. I'm absolutely positive. Now, whether mum or dad said that to make me better and just use my brother as an example, or whether somewhere I've gotten that story confused with someone else following a car, I have no idea. But over the years, I told my kids not to follow cars out because your Uncle Phil.
Oh, look, and we've got stories where the main protagonist changes depending on who's telling the story, right? And several of us have claimed ownership of the story as happening directly to them and being the cause of the story. And they've, and there's been this dispute as to who was actually responsible for it.
So imagine if you just dropped this down every Christmas time, sat around and then just didn't do anything with it for 10, 15 years. And then finally you said, I'm going to put a compilation together.
Well, I'm worried about all these promises that we would have made to the kids. And, we're going to go to the Antarctica. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah,
that's right. We said 5 to 10 years. Well, that means 5. Now that means 10. Anyway, it's an interesting concept. You can then, once you've done it, you can store it in their cloud, which might scare a few people. You can store it locally. Some people might store it in their cloud because they think it's safer. Some people might store it in their own hard drives because I think that's safer. But it is just a fascinating concept, and I wouldn't mind trying it one time. Even if you sat a phone in the middle, it's still a bit more visual. Where this is just a little subtle, unobtrusive thing that sits there.
And just the laughs and the right event. Yeah,
at the right event.
We tend to take technology for granted these days, and we take it with us everywhere. Our devices are quite happy to go deep underwater, take on icy cold temperatures in blizzard conditions, and they're capable of taking all sorts of knocks and bumps these days. But one thing that seems to bring them all down are the high temperatures. You see, at about 200 degrees, electronics just tend to fall apart, severely limiting remote sensing equipment in those types of places where it may be very handy. Now, Matt, if there's one thing that humans tend to do well, it's solving problems, and the whole melting circuits is no exception in this case.
It isn't. And it's that wonder product that we've talked about before, graphene.
Yeah,
that seems to be the solution to all products. There's an old saying in science that if someone comes along and offers you a product that solves every different problem you've got out there, it solves colds and fixes broken legs, it's usually a scam. It's snake oil. It doesn't really do all those things. Yeah. But graphene does.
seems to do everything. For those people who don't know what graphene is, it's just a thin sheet of carbon, like one atom thick.
Yeah, I was about to say very thin sheet, yeah. So, and producing it's difficult. And actually there was a process that we talked about before where they were using Scotch tape to pull off thin layers, multiple thin layers of graphene to create it. Now, it sounds like a tedious job to have Scotch tape and just keep pulling up. They made it a little bit more efficient than that, but producing it in quantities is quite difficult. But when we talk about, and this is actually something that's slightly different, this is a thing called a MEM resistor. No, that's not right. A memristor. It's a combination of a resistor and a memory chip. So it's something that can do computations and memory at the same time. So this is a new style of chip. Normally we've had chips that remember things. We've had chips that have done computations. A memristor. No, I've got to get it right. Memristor. That's it. A memristor does both in one, and that's being used a lot in AI. So that's a good start. But the way they've actually done this particular chip is they've had a layer of tungsten as a top electrode. They've got some hafnium oxide as the insulator and some graphene as the bottom layer. By doing that, it's able to withstand temperatures about 700 degrees Celsius. 200 degrees Celsius normally tops out any sort of electronics.
Yeah, right.
But this is getting up to 700 degrees Celsius. Degrees Celsius or degrees Celsius?
Degrees.
Degrees. You want to
I always put an S in there.
Right, yeah, why not?
That's what I...
So at 700 degrees Celsius, that's not too bad. And why do we want that? What would we use that for? Well, we've got a few things. We start going geothermal drilling, we're getting above 200 degrees Celsius. We start going and sending space missions towards the sun, maybe Venus we want to look at. Mercury's probably a bit too much for it, but Venus, sure, you get pretty hot there, and so you can start to get temperatures above that 200, which really fries normal electronics. So this all happened through a bit of an accident. And as much as we talk about AI being used for material science development, AI being used for so many developments, we know throughout history we've had some accidental developments, and this was another one of those. It was a graphene experiment that was being done, and a little bit of an accident, and they found that, actually, look at this. It can handle incredibly high temperatures. Let's pretend we're doing this for real. No, they didn't. They put their hand up and said, no, we weren't doing that. We were just trying to do this, and away it goes. The great part about it is that tungsten and hafnium oxide are fairly common, so it's not like they're using something very rare. Graphene, not so much, but graphene is common in other forms. Carbon's very common, but getting it to graphene is still a bit of a challenge on scale. So the next challenge is to build this chip in such a way that the rest of the electronics can withstand those same sort of temperatures. So that's a bit of a challenge. But It is. We do some fantastic things.
Yeah. Amazing. And to think that it just has come from an accident as well. The right people made the right accident.
That's right.
And we're able to put two and two together.
Yeah,
and next
exactly
thing you
right.
know, we've got developed technology.
And they weren't chasing something that could handle incredibly high temperatures. They're doing something completely different. And next thing you know, oh, look at this. Fantastic. So
next time you've got a really hot thing that needs some measurements made.
That's right.
Some remote sensing done, and you're thinking, it's just going to fry the circuits. Just go and get yourself some graphene.
That's right. But it might even work with vehicles. You tend to get high temperatures more on ICE vehicles than EVs, but you do tend to get some high temperatures on vehicles sometimes. So maybe it could be used around vehicles. I think once we get something that can handle those temperatures, in the past it's just been, don't worry about it, it's too hot. Yeah. Once you get something that can handle it, suddenly you might go, now we've got that. Yeah. Whew, we could use it for this.
This is the second piece in the puzzle. And then the third piece is where someone goes, there's a job that needs to be done here. It just has to be able to withstand hot temperatures.
Yeah. So fascinating. Keep
looking
at.
Maybe I can set up a camera in my oven to be able to watch the roast lamb cooking. Or
from the lounge room.
From the lounge room.
On your phone.
With the camera actually in the oven.
Yeah,
right?
why not?
Yeah. Well,
or you get your robot to run out there at 22.1 kilometres an hour. Or 25, sorry, you can go 25.
And that is all we have for you today, folks. This little bowl of ice cream has well and truly been licked clean. There's neither a sniff of iced magic or a single 100 or 1,000 left to speak of. We are done for another week. Thanks for another cracking Tech Talk, Matt.
I've just got to work out the next event that I can invite all the kids home to and say we're just going to record everything. I'd love to do it without recording them, but I feel that's a bit of a breach of privacy. Because I just wonder how self-conscious people would be. But
folks, if you get one, make sure you tell people
that's right.
you're using.
Seems the right thing to do, doesn't it?
And thank you for tuning in today, folks. Tech Talk with Matthew Dixon is 99.999% factual with the barest minimum of bunkum and hogwash. We put it through the strainer 35 times before broadcasting, so you know it's good. I'm James Eddy, claiming 100% of the ownership of any detectable bunkum and hogwash that has occurred in the last 50 minutes. We hope that you've enjoyed today's episode enough to join us again in a week's time. Don't forget to tell your friends about us and bring them along for the ride. Until next week, take care and we'll see you when we see you.